Hi, I'm Pascha Sotolongo, and I'll be reading my flash story, Plague Love. Takes a little getting used to, doesn't it? The mask muffled his voice, but she could hear the resolve. He was good-natured. He wasn't complaining. Where'd you get them? Online, she said, fidgeting. She wanted to pull her legs up onto the bench, crisscross applesauce like she was a kid again, and the two of them in hazmat suits, the empty park, the crows tossed against a perished blue sky, was light-hearted fun. But the suits were meant to be disposable and felt as if they'd easily rip. They both noticed the flimsiness. Weren't they expensive? Arms aloft, feet lifted, he examined the papery white material covering nearly every inch of him, every inch of her, all but the goggled eyes. How much? Too much, she said with a shrug. I'll help pay. I have some money left and I can try to sell the Triumph. Motorcycles are kind of dangerous, she said, gingering her head until, from the corner of her eye, she could see him nodding. It felt impossible to turn all the way. The fabric would surely give, especially where the hood met the neckline. So they kept pivoting toward each other, stiff as tree trunks, like they had whiplash, eyes furtive. This was for the best anyway. It had been a while, and they felt almost shy now. From a distance, they might have been strangers waiting for a bus. Shoulder by shoulder, they watched the crows glide. Beyond the black sails of their wings, silver clouds mounted, their crisp edges unequivocal, like they knew what they were about. The sky purpled toward evening, and a breeze upset the October maple leaves, tumbled them together with assorted trash. A dirty styrofoam cup settled at their feet. He nudged it. She nudged it too and said, "It'll outlive us all." From their bench, they surveyed the park and a far scattering of houses, but the crows and a few frenetic squirrels were the only living things in sight. He stood up and began to pace. After several rounds, he stopped, searched the sky, and groaned, his fingertips briefly gripping his head. She studied her feet and tried not to cry. When he noticed her that way, he said, "I'm okay, we're okay," and thought to squat at her knees, but reconsidered. The fabric again, so thin. Instead, he straightened his back, stiffened his arms, and began lumbering goofily to and fro. "Hey," he said, "I'm the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man." She watched him, his eyes winking in the low light. "You look like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man," she laughed. "You look like a snow queen," he said. "You look like a spaceman," she said. So he took giant, slow motion steps, and his eyes grew big and serious with the effort. They laughed harder. "You look like a cloud," he said, puffing in the mask. "You look like the Pillsbury Doughboy." But not really. He was a slender man, the hazmat just hanging from his lean frame. "You look like..." He paused. "I'm out." But he'd nearly said ghost. The crows hollered, a grumpy row of them crowding the power line, old man hunched and swaying in the breeze. He sat down, but sideways this time, facing her, one leg hinged hard, the hazmat straining at the knee. "I wish I could take you out to dinner," he said. "I know it's old-fashioned, but that's what I want. You in a silk dress, pearls." "Pearls?" By degrees, she turned to face him, gentling her limbs like prayer beads to protect the suit. "Paradise to me." Black lashes ringed her black eyes, and he could just glimpse her thick brows below the hazmat shrouding her forehead. She used to pluck them, but now they met in the middle, and he found himself drawn to this bit of hair. It made her look like a Tajik bride. He could not precisely recall her nose just then, and her mouth waded into the fog of his memory as a cherry or strawberry, which struck him as ridiculous and wrong, but her eyes and those brows, they could be enough. "Where would we go?" She reached her gloved hand toward him, and he clasped it in both of his, waiting for their bodies' warmth to bleed through. "What's your pleasure?" She scanned the horizon, and the setting sun conjured copper from her irises. "Shawarma?" "Sure." "Jeweled rice?" "Yes." "Kunefe?" "Absolutely." And dancing, she said, eyes narrowing and the mask crawling upward with a smile he couldn't see, slow and dreamy. I'd dazzle you with a fancy gift, he said. Emeralds? That is old-fashioned. She rolled her eyes. But I can top it. This with a wink. What I want most is the rubies of your lips warm against mine, sweet like caramel with an oaky wine note at the back. Oh no, he laughed, and through his booty towed a silvery gum wrapper, the red tide of leaves surging and retreating around them. That's the worst, he said, and brought her hand to his mask, kissed the antiseptic fabric with a smack so she'd know what he was doing in there. I miss you, he said. I know, she said. Me too. This is hard. It'll be okay, she nodded, trying to believe herself. I want to make love with you, he said. The crows had finally gone to bed, and the park drifted into a deeper quietude. Make love with your eyes, she squeezed his hand. How does that work? Eyes are the windows of the soul. She'd always admired the particular blue of his, not light, but dark and winsome as the black sea of her childhood. Perhaps in this foundering world, they would show her the way. Do you see my eyes loving you? I do, she said. Thank you.